Before you watch the entire video, I want you to consider and answer these questions. Will you sleep with a man to save your dying husband? And will you forgive your wife if you found out she cheated on you to have money to save your life? Reflect on these questions as you delve into this emotional and powerful story of love, sacrifice, and forgiveness. When Serwaa completed university, she returned home and started attending her old church. In the same church was Elder Asari, a very successful and respected man. Serwaa was incredibly beautiful, with a smile that could light up any room. Many men in the church admired her and wanted to marry her, including Elder Asari. Elder Asari was a kind man, known for his wisdom and generosity. He had achieved much in life and was well loved by everyone in the community. Despite his success, he found himself drawn to Serwaa's beauty and gentle spirit. One Sunday after service, Elder Asari approached Serwaa with a warm smile. "Serwaa, may I have a moment of your time?" he asked gently. "Of course, Elder Asari," she replied, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. They sat on a bench outside the church, the sun casting a golden glow around them. "Serwaa," Elder Asari began, "I have watched you grow into a wonderful young woman. You have a kind heart and a bright mind. I must admit, I am very fond of you." Serwaa blushed, her heart fluttering. "Thank you, Elder Asari. That means a lot coming from you." Elder Asari took a deep breath. "I know many men have shown interest in you, and I am one of them. But I want you to know that my feelings for you are genuine. I care for you deeply and would be honored if you considered me as a potential husband." Serwaa looked down, thinking carefully before she spoke. "Elder Asari, I appreciate your kind words and your interest in me. But I believe that love is not about wealth or status. For me, love must be true and pure." Elder Asari nodded, respecting her thoughts. "I understand, Serwaa. I want you to know that my love for you is sincere. I will give you time to think about it, and whatever decision you make, I will always respect you." Days turned into weeks, and Serwaa spent a lot of time praying and thinking about her future. She admired Elder Asari's honesty and kindness, but she was still unsure. One evening, as the sun was setting, Serwaa found herself walking in the church garden. She was deep in thought when Elder Asari joined her. "Serwaa," he said softly, "I don't want to pressure you, but I want you to know that I will wait for you, no matter how long it takes. Your happiness means the world to me." Serwaa turned to face him, her eyes reflecting both gratitude and sadness. "Elder Asari," she began, her voice steady yet tender, "I admire your kindness and generosity more than words can express. You are a wonderful man, and any woman would be lucky to have you." Elder Asari listened intently, sensing the gravity of her words. "But," Serwaa continued, her voice growing softer, "I must be honest with you. You have no place in my heart as a lover. I do not want to lead you on or give you false hope. It wouldn't be fair to either of us. My feelings for you are those of deep respect and friendship, but nothing more." Elder Asari nodded, a gentle smile forming on his lips, despite the pang of disappointment in his heart. "Thank you for your honesty, Serwaa. It takes great courage to speak so openly. I respect your feelings and your decision." Serwaa felt a weight lift from her shoulders. "I hope we can remain friends, Elder Asari. Your guidance and wisdom mean so much to me. I value our friendship and would not want to lose that." Elder Asari placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Of course, Serwaa. Our friendship is very important to me too. I will always be here for you, as a friend and a mentor. Your happiness is what matters most." In the same church was a very humble young man called Amoako, a singer with a sweet and charming voice. When he sang, his voice would bring tears to your eyes. Many people attended church on Sundays just to hear him sing. He was a man that every woman would love to marry. One Sunday, as Serwaa sat in her usual spot, she listened to Amoako's voice fill the church. His singing touched her heart deeply, and she found herself moved by the purity and emotion in his voice. She admired his humility and the way he seemed to pour his soul into every song. After the service, Serwaa saw Amoako standing by the church entrance, greeting the congregation. She felt a sudden urge to speak to him, to get to know the man behind the beautiful voice. She approached him with a warm smile. "Hello, Amoako," she said softly. "Your singing today was truly beautiful. It touched my heart." Amoako smiled shyly, his eyes reflecting his humility. "Thank you, Serwaa. That means a lot to me. I sing from my heart, hoping to bring a little bit of heaven to those who listen." Serwaa was struck by his sincerity. "You do more than that, Amoako. You inspire us all with your music." They talked for a while, sharing stories and laughter. One sunny afternoon, Elder Asari decided to visit Serwaa at her home. He arrived with a warm smile, carrying a basket filled with gifts and an envelope containing a significant sum of money. He was greeted by Serwaa, who invited him inside. "Hello, Elder Asari," Serwaa said warmly. "It's so nice to see you. Please come in." "Thank you," Elder Asari replied, stepping inside and handing her the basket. "I brought you some gifts and a little something extra in this envelope. It's just a small token of my appreciation for you." Serwaa looked at the basket and the envelope, her heart sinking. She knew Elder Asari was a kind and generous man, but she couldn't help but feel uneasy about accepting such lavish gifts. She took a deep breath and gently placed the items on the table. "Elder Asari, I appreciate your kindness and generosity more than words can express," she began, her voice soft but firm. "However, I must be honest with you. I cannot accept these gifts." Elder Asari looked surprised. "But why, Serwaa? These gifts are just a way to show my gratitude and respect for you." Serwaa shook her head gently. "I understand that, but it doesn't feel right to me. I don't want there to be any misunderstandings or feelings of obligation. I value our friendship and respect too much to let material things come between us." Elder Asari sighed, realizing the sincerity in her words. "I see, Serwaa. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I just wanted to help and show my appreciation." Serwaa smiled warmly. "And I appreciate that truly. Your support and friendship mean the world to me. That's more than enough." Elder Asari nodded, respecting her decision. "Very well, Serwaa. I understand. Thank you for your honesty." As Elder Asari left, Serwaa felt a sense of relief. She was grateful for his understanding and hoped their friendship would remain strong. She knew she had made the right choice, keeping her integrity and the purity of her relationships intact. That evening, Serwaa met Amoako at the church. They sat together on a bench in the garden, the evening breeze gently rustling the leaves around them. "Amoako," Serwaa began, "Elder Asari visited me today with some gifts and a large sum of money. He said it was just a gift, but I couldn't accept it. I didn't want any misunderstandings or to feel obligated." Amoako took her hand, his eyes filled with admiration. "Serwaa, you did the right thing. Your integrity and honesty are part of what makes you so special. I'm proud of you." Serwaa smiled, feeling the warmth of Amoako's words. "Thank you, Amoako. Your support means everything to me." A few days later, Elder Asari, accompanied by a few church members, visited Serwaa's parents. They were warmly welcomed into the family home, where they sat in the living room, exchanging pleasantries and sipping on cool drinks. After a bit of small talk, Elder Asari cleared his throat and began to speak earnestly. "Mr. and Mrs. Mensah, I have come today to express my deep admiration and love for your daughter, Serwaa. She is a remarkable young woman, and I would be honored if you would consider allowing me to marry her." Serwaa's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Mensah, exchanged glances. They had always respected Elder Asari for his wisdom and kindness. Mr. Mensah responded, "Elder Asari, we hold you in high regard, and we appreciate the honor you show our family. We are ready to welcome you into our family, provided our daughter agrees." They called Serwaa into the room. She entered, her eyes calm but resolute, and sat down next to her parents. Mr. Mensah spoke gently. "Serwaa, Elder Asari has come to express his wish to marry you. We value his respect and kindness, but we want to know how you feel about this." Serwaa took a deep breath and looked directly at Elder Asari, then at her parents. "Mom, Dad, Elder Asari, I appreciate the love and respect you have shown me. However, I cannot accept this proposal. If I marry Elder Asari, I won't be able to give him my heart because I have no romantic affection for him, even though I admire him greatly." Elder Asari listened intently, nodding slowly as she spoke. He could see the sincerity in her eyes and the firmness of her decision. Mrs. Mensah reached out to hold Serwaa's hand, offering silent support. "I understand, Serwaa," Elder Asari said softly, his voice tinged with sadness but full of respect. "Your honesty and integrity are commendable. I want you to be happy, and I respect your decision." Mr. Mensah nodded, looking at Elder Asari. "We appreciate your understanding, Elder Asari. Serwaa's happiness is our priority." As the visitors prepared to leave, Elder Asari turned to Serwaa's parents. "Thank you for your time and hospitality. I respect Serwaa's decision and wish her nothing but happiness. Our friendship and respect remain unchanged." After they left, Serwaa's parents sat with her in the living room, their expressions thoughtful. "Serwaa," her mother began, "we want you to know that we support you in whatever choice you make. Your happiness is what matters most to us." Serwaa smiled, feeling relieved and supported. "Thank you, Mom and Dad. Your support means everything to me." Later that evening, Serwaa met Amoako at their usual spot in the church garden. She recounted the day's events, and Amoako listened intently, his expression filled with admiration and love. "Serwaa," Amoako said softly, taking her hands in his, "you showed such strength and honesty today. I am so proud of you. Your courage and integrity are truly inspiring." A few weeks later, Serwaa excitedly shared some news with Amoako as they sat under their favorite tree in the garden. "Amoako, I got a job as a secretary at a company," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Amoako's face lit up with a broad smile. "That's wonderful news, Serwaa. Congratulations. I knew you would find something great. I wish you all the best in this new journey." "Thank you, Amoako," Serwaa said, her heart warming at his genuine happiness for her. "I couldn't have done it without your support and encouragement." Amoako chuckled softly. "You've always had the talent and determination. I'm just glad I could be there for you." Despite their close friendship, Amoako had never formally proposed to Serwaa, though his feelings for her were clear in his actions and words. They spent many evenings together, sharing dreams, fears, and laughter. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day. One evening, after a long day at work, Serwaa sat on a bench in the garden, thinking about how much her life had changed. Amoako joined her, noticing the contemplative look on her face. penny for your thoughts?" he asked with a gentle smile. Serwaa turned to him, her eyes filled with emotion. "Amoako, I've been thinking a lot lately. About us, about our future. We've shared so much, and you've always been there for me. I feel like there's something more between us." Amoako's heart raced. He had been waiting for the right moment to express his feelings, and now it seemed that Serwaa was opening the door. He took a deep breath and gently held her hands. "Serwaa," he began, his voice filled with emotion, "from the moment we became friends, you have been a light in my life. Your kindness, your strength, and your beautiful soul have touched me deeply. I have fallen in love with you, Serwaa. I've been waiting for the right moment to tell you, and I hope you feel the same way." Tears welled up in Serwaa's eyes as she listened to his heartfelt words. "Amoako, I love you too. You've always been my rock, my confidant. I can't imagine my life without you." Amoako smiled, his heart soaring with joy. "Serwaa, will you be with me, not just as a friend, but as my partner in life? Will you marry me?" Serwaa's tears turned to tears of joy. "Yes, Amoako, I will marry you. I want to spend my life with you." In the church, when Elder Asari heard about Serwaa and Amoako's relationship, he felt a mix of jealousy and disappointment. Unable to keep his feelings to himself, he decided to approach Serwaa after the Sunday service. He found her talking with some friends and waited until she was alone. "Serwaa," he began, his voice tinged with frustration, "can I have a word with you?" "Of course, Elder Asari," Serwaa replied, sensing the tension in his voice. He took a deep breath and spoke bluntly. "So it was because of Amoako that you turned me down. Are you sure Amoako, an ordinary bank driver, can take care of you? Think about this carefully." Serwaa looked at him calmly, her heart steady. "Elder Asari, my decision wasn't about choosing one person over another based on their job or status. It's not about money or wealth. It's about how my heart feels. I followed my heart, not wealth." Elder Asari's expression hardened. "You have made a wrong decision, Serwaa. I hope you don't regret it later." Serwaa felt a pang of sadness for him, but stood her ground. "I understand your concern, Elder Asari, but I believe true happiness comes from love, respect, and understanding. Amoako gives me that. I know you mean well, but this is my choice." Elder Asari shook his head and walked away, leaving Serwaa feeling both relieved and a bit sorrowful for the confrontation. She knew she had made the right decision, but she wished it hadn't caused Elder Asari so much pain. That evening, Serwaa met Amoako at their usual spot in the church garden. She recounted her conversation with Elder Asari, her voice steady but emotional. Amoako listened carefully, his expression thoughtful. "I'm sorry you had to go through that, Serwaa. I know Elder Asari cares for you in his way, but I'm glad you stood by your feelings." Serwaa smiled, feeling the warmth of Amoako's support. "I did what felt right, Amoako. Our love is based on more than just material things. It's about the connection we share and the respect we have for each other." Amoako took her hand, his eyes filled with love. "I promise to always cherish you and prove that your heart made the right choice. Together, we'll build a life filled with happiness and love." As Serwaa and Amoako prepared for their wedding, the atmosphere in the church was a mix of joy and underlying tension. Some men, especially Elder Asari, felt a pang of jealousy, wishing they had been the ones to win Serwaa's heart. The women, on the other hand, envied Serwaa for being chosen by Amoako, whose gentle nature and beautiful singing voice had captured many hearts. Despite the mixed emotions, Serwaa and Amoako remained focused on their love and the journey ahead. They decided to have a moderate traditional marriage ceremony, reflecting their humble and sincere approach to life. The traditional marriage took place at Serwaa's family home, adorned with colorful decorations and filled with the joyful sounds of laughter and music. Family and friends gathered to witness the union, dressed in vibrant traditional attire. The ceremony was rich in culture, with blessings from elders and the exchange of symbolic gifts. Amoako's family arrived with gifts, including drinks, cloths, and a bride price, in a show of respect and tradition. Serwaa looked radiant in her traditional kente cloth, and Amoako beamed with pride in his matching attire. The two families came together, celebrating the union with songs, dances, and heartfelt prayers. The couple had a modest church wedding. The church was beautifully decorated with flowers and ribbons, creating a serene and holy atmosphere. 3 months after their wedding, one evening, Amoako returned home from work, looking more tired and exhausted than usual. Serwaa noticed immediately, and her concern grew. "Amoako, you look so tired," she said gently, approaching him as he sank into a chair. "What's wrong? Is everything okay?" Amoako sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. "I've just had a headache all day, and I've been feeling a bit dizzy. It's probably just fatigue." Serwaa knelt beside him, her eyes filled with worry. "You work so hard, Amoako. Maybe you need to rest more. Let me get you some water and something for the headache." She quickly fetched a glass of water and some pain relievers. As he took the medication, Serwaa sat beside him, holding his hand. "You should see a doctor if this doesn't get better. I'm really worried about you." Amoako gave her a tired smile. "Thank you, Serwaa. I'll be fine. I just need to rest." That night, Serwaa made sure Amoako had a light dinner and went to bed early. She stayed by his side, watching over him as he slept, her heart heavy with concern. The next morning, despite still feeling unwell, Amoako insisted on going to work. "Serwaa, I can't miss work today. I'll be fine," he said, trying to reassure her as he got ready. Serwaa looked at him with concern. "Amoako, please be careful. Promise me you'll go to the hospital if you feel worse." Amoako nodded, giving her a kiss on the forehead before leaving. "I promise. I'll be fine." However, as Amoako was driving the company car later that day, his condition took a turn for the worse. The dizziness returned with a vengeance, making it difficult for him to focus on the road. His vision blurred, and he felt an overwhelming sense of fatigue. Realizing he couldn't continue, he pulled over and called his supervisor for help. Within minutes, an ambulance arrived and rushed Amoako to the hospital. His colleagues informed Serwaa, who immediately made her way to the hospital, her heart pounding with worry. When she arrived, she found Amoako in a hospital bed, looking pale but conscious. The doctors were running tests to determine the cause of his sudden deterioration. "Amoako," Serwaa said softly, tears brimming in her eyes as she held his hand. "You scared me so much." "I'm glad you're okay." Amoako managed a weak smile. "I'm sorry, Serwaa. I should have listened to you. I'm glad you're here." The doctors explained that Amoako's anemia had worsened due to stress and overexertion. They administered a blood transfusion and adjusted his medication, emphasizing the importance of rest and a proper diet. After a few days of treatment and monitoring, Amoako was discharged from the hospital. Serwaa was there to bring him home, determined to ensure he took his recovery seriously this time. Amoako's health condition continued to worsen over time. He experienced increasingly severe headaches, dizziness, slurred speech, and memory loss. As a driver for a bank, his deteriorating health raised concerns among his employers. Although the bank initially provided financial support for his medical treatment, they eventually found it unsustainable. Realizing the financial strain, the bank sent Amoako a letter informing him that he had been replaced. They encouraged him to focus on his health and assured him that he could reapply for a job if he recovered. The dismissal was a significant blow to Amoako, both emotionally and financially. Without a steady income, Amoako struggled to afford his medical bills. His worsening condition meant he relied heavily on his partner, Serwaa. Despite her efforts, her salary was insufficient to cover the mounting medical expenses. This left them in a challenging situation, struggling to manage Amoako's deteriorating health with limited financial resources. Concerned about Amoako's health and their financial situation, Serwaa decided to visit the church pastor. She explained her husband's condition, detailing the struggles they had been facing since Amoako's health had declined. The pastor listened attentively, his face showing deep concern and empathy. "Serwaa, I am very sorry to hear about Amoako's condition. He has been a valuable member of our church community, and his singing has touched so many hearts. We have all been blessed by his presence." The pastor then stood up and walked to a small cabinet in the corner of his office. He opened it and took out an envelope with some money inside. Handing it to Serwaa, he said, "This is a small amount to help support Amoako during this difficult time. This money isn't from the church coffers, but rather from my own savings. Please use it to help manage things for now." Serwaa's eyes filled with tears of gratitude. "Thank you so much, Pastor. This means a lot to us. I was worried about how we would manage, and this will help us get through this period." The money from the pastor, though given with the best intentions, wasn't enough to sustain them for more than 2 days. Serwaa was grateful, but knew it wouldn't solve their long-term financial problems. As time passed, Amoako's condition worsened, prompting another visit to the doctor. This time, the diagnosis was much more serious. Amoako had a brain tumor that required immediate surgery. The news was devastating, and the cost of the surgery was beyond their means. Serwaa had already exhausted all her savings and was in debt. Amoako's family did their best to provide financial support, but they had limited resources. With Amoako having lost his parents, there was only so much they could contribute. This left Serwaa shouldering most of the burden, despite her unwavering determination and love for her husband. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Serwaa decided to speak with the church pastor about the overwhelming cost of Amoako's surgery, which amounted to almost $20,000. She knew it was a significant amount, but she had no other options left. "Pastor," Serwaa said, her voice trembling with emotion, "the cost of Amoako's surgery is almost $20,000. I don't know how we can pay for it. We've exhausted all our resources." The pastor's face paled slightly at the amount. "Serwaa, that is indeed a substantial sum, but we cannot lose hope. I will bring this matter to the church board members and see what we can do to help. Please give me a little time to discuss it with them." The pastor met with the board members to discuss Amoako's surgery. Although he personally had reservations about spending such a significant amount of money on Amoako, he kept his concerns to himself. After presenting Amoako's case to the board, Elder Asari, who was a substantial contributor to the church and harbored a grudge against Serwaa for not accepting his proposal, stood up to voice his opinion. He saw this as an opportunity to assert his feelings about Serwaa's decision. Elder Asari began, his tone measured but firm. "While we all empathize with Amoako's situation, we must consider the broader implications of using such a large sum of money from our church funds. If we start spending on individual health issues, we risk opening the floodgates. Many will bring their personal medical problems to the church, which could drain our resources and hinder our church's development." His words caused a stir among the members. Some nodded in agreement, while others looked troubled. The debate intensified, with some board members supporting the need to help a valued member of their community and others echoing Elder Asari's concerns about the precedent it would set. After much discussion, the pastor decided to hold a secret vote to resolve the issue. The members cast their votes, and the result was against providing financial support for Amoako's surgery. The decision left Serwaa and Amoako without the needed funds from the church. The pastor approached Serwaa with a heavy heart. "Serwaa, I am deeply sorry to inform you that the board has decided not to allocate the church's funds for Amoako's surgery. We understand the gravity of the situation, but the decision was made to protect the church's future." Serwaa's heart sank. She had hoped the church, which had been their pillar of support, would stand by them in this dire time. "Thank you for trying, Pastor," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I understand." Amoako was admitted to the hospital again due to his failing health. The doctors were grim, warning that any further delay could be fatal. Serwaa, already overwhelmed with worry, was heartbroken and in tears as she watched Amoako's condition deteriorate. Amoako, seeing the despair in Serwaa's eyes, gathered what little strength he had left and reached out to hold her hand. "My dear," he whispered, his voice weak and filled with desperation. "Please don't leave me. Please don't let me die. I don't want to lose you. Do your best to save me. Please, I'm dying. Please save me, Serwaa." Tears streamed down Serwaa's face as she held Amoako's hand tightly, her heart breaking at his plea. She felt a surge of determination. She couldn't let him go without fighting with everything she had. "I won't let you die, Amoako," she said, a voice trembling but resolute. "I will do everything I can to save you. I promise." Driven by her love for Amoako and the urgency of his condition, Serwaa reached out to everyone she knew. She called friends, family and community members, pleading for immediate help. She explained the dire situation, emphasizing the need for urgent action. One of Serwaa's church members approached her with a suggestion, knowing the desperate situation she was in. "Serwaa," the member said, "I believe the only person who can give you the financial support you need is Elder Asari. He has been known to give loans to people, though with interest. Perhaps if you go to him, he might be able to help." With a heavy heart and no other options, Serwaa decided to confront Elder Asari. She found him in his office and knocked on the door. "Elder Asari," she began hesitantly, "I know we have had our differences, but I am desperate. Amoako's life is hanging by a thread, and we need financial help. Please, I am begging you." Elder Asari looked at her with a cold expression. "Serwaa, I once told you to think twice about your decision not to accept me. And now, you come to me in your time of need." Tears streamed down Serwaa's face as she knelt down, pleading, "Please, Elder Asari, my husband is dying. I am begging you to help us. I will do anything. Please, save him." Elder Asari's face remained stern as he shook his head. "I cannot help you, Serwaa. I will not lend you the money to save your husband. You should have thought about this before." As Serwaa was about to leave, her heart shattered. Elder Asari shouted, "Wait!" She turned around, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "I will help you," he said, "but on one condition." "I'm ready to do anything. Please tell me," Serwaa replied, her voice trembling. Elder Asari leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "You must spend a night with me, and I will give you the money to save your husband for free." Serwaa's heart pounded in her chest. She felt disgust and anger rising within her. How could he make such a vile demand in exchange for saving her husband's life? She stood there, torn between her love for Amoako and the moral repulsion she felt. For a moment, she said nothing, staring at Elder Asari in disbelief. Then, with a heavy heart, she took a deep breath. Elder Asari, I am desperate to save Amoako, but I cannot compromise my integrity and our love in this way. I would rather find another way than betray my values and my husband. Serwaa looked at Elder Asari with tears in her eyes. You are a Christian, and you know what you are asking is a sin. Elder Asari replied calmly, Yes, I know it's a sin, but no one is perfect. We are all sinners in some ways, so please, leave my office if you are not ready. Sadly, Serwaa left his office in tears, not knowing what to do. She visited her husband in the hospital and couldn't bear to see him in such a dire state. He was indeed dying, and the doctor warned her that any further delay in his surgical treatment might cost him his life. Desperate and with no other options, 2 days later, Serwaa visited Elder Asari at his house at night. She arrived looking torn and sad, her heart heavy with the decision she felt forced to make. Asari welcomed her and led her to his room. Once inside, Serwaa, feeling defeated and heartbroken, undressed and lay on his bed. Elder Asari, unable to contain his anticipation, also undressed and lay beside her. During the intimacy, Serwaa cried softly, her heart breaking with each moment. Forgive me, Amoako. Oh God, forgive me, she whispered repeatedly, tears streaming down her face. She spent the entire night there, her spirit crushed by the weight of her actions. The next morning, Elder Asari handed her a check for the amount she needed. Here is the money. Go to the bank and withdraw it, he said, his tone devoid of the compassion she so desperately needed. Serwaa took the check, her hands trembling. She left his house with a heavy heart, feeling a deep sense of shame and guilt. She went straight to the bank, withdrew the money, and rushed to the hospital to arrange for Amoako's surgery. The surgery was performed successfully, and as Amoako lay recovering, Serwaa was by his side, her heart torn between relief and the burden of her secret. She couldn't bring herself to tell him what she had done to save his life, fearing it would shatter him. Days turned into weeks, and Amoako's health improved steadily, unaware of the sacrifice Serwaa had made. One evening, as Amoako was resting, he looked at Serwaa with gratitude. You saved my life, Serwaa. I don't know how to thank you enough. Your love and strength have given me a second chance. Serwaa forced a smile, her heart aching. I'm just glad you're getting better, Amoako. That's all that matters. Despite the successful surgery and Amoako's improving health, Serwaa struggled with her guilt and the secret she carried. She knew she needed to find a way to come to terms with what had happened and seek forgiveness for herself. In the months that followed, Serwaa sought solace in prayer and counseling, trying to heal from the emotional wounds. She dedicated herself to caring for Amoako and rebuilding her sense of self-worth. She also found strength in her faith, trusting that God would help her find peace. Amoako, unaware of the full extent of Serwaa's sacrifice, grateful for the love and support he received. Their journey was fraught with challenges, but they faced them together, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. One day, Elder Asari confronted Serwaa again, this time with a chilling demand. Serwaa, I want you to visit me again tonight, he said, his voice low and menacing. Serwaa felt a wave of fear and disgust. No, I can't do that, she replied, her voice trembling. Elder Asari's eyes narrowed. Don't forget how you managed to save your husband. If you refuse, I'll make sure everyone knows how you cheated on him to pay for his treatment. It's either you accept another visit, or I tell everyone your secret." Serwaa's heart pounded in her chest. The thought of her secret being exposed filled her with dread. She knew the scandal would not only destroy her reputation, but also shatter Amoako's heart. She couldn't bear the thought of hurting him after everything he had been through. That night, Serwaa was overwhelmed with frustration and fear. She couldn't sleep, her mind racing with anxiety over the impossible choice she was being forced to make. She felt trapped and alone, unsure of what to do. Serwaa realized that Elder Asari's demands would never end, and that if she agreed to his terms, he would continue to exploit and threaten her. Determined to put an end to this nightmare, she decided to tell Amoako the truth, no matter the consequences. One evening, she sat by Amoako's bedside, her heart heavy with the burden she was about to unload. "Amoako, I need to tell you something very important," she began, her voice trembling. Amoako looked at her with concern. "What is it, Serwaa?" Taking a deep breath, Serwaa recounted everything, how she had managed to pay for his surgery, Elder Asari's vile proposition, and the night she had spent with him to save Amoako's life. As she spoke, tears streamed down her face. Amoako's expression changed from confusion to shock, and then to anger. "You? You did what?" he shouted, his voice shaking with fury. "You slept with him? You betrayed me?" Serwaa tried to explain, her voice pleading. "Amoako, I did it to save your life. I had no other choice. Please, try to understand." But Amoako was too hurt and angry to listen. "You are a prostitute, Serwaa. I'm sure you were seeing him even before we got married. He was interested in you, and you probably accepted his advances long ago. Now you're telling me this?" "No, Amoako, it's not like that," Serwaa cried. "I love you, and I did this for you. Please, believe me." But Amoako couldn't forgive her. "I can't stay with someone who betrayed me like this," he said coldly. "I want a divorce. Go back to your parents. I can't look at you anymore." Heartbroken and emotionally shattered, Serwaa returned to her parents' home, carrying the weight of Amoako's anger and her own guilt. Her parents welcomed her back, but they could see the deep pain in her eyes. Days turned into weeks, and Serwaa struggled to cope with the trauma. She felt abandoned and misunderstood, her love for Amoako and her desperate actions leading to her deepest sorrow. Her parents tried to comfort her, but the emotional scars ran deep. Serwaa stopped going to church after everything that had happened. The emotional trauma and shame were too much for her to bear. Amoako also ceased attending, feeling betrayed by both Serwaa and the church. He was too afraid to confront Elder Asari, who was influential and wealthy. Instead, Amoako kept his feelings bottled up, cutting off all contact with Serwaa. He blocked her calls and messages, choosing to forget the sacrifice she made to save his life. Serwaa, left alone with her guilt and sorrow, struggled to forgive herself. She cried every day, feeling lost and abandoned. The weight of her actions and the subsequent rejection by Amoako left her deeply depressed. One day, while out in the market, Serwaa ran into Elder Asari. He approached her with a smug expression. "Hey, Serwaa, I heard your husband has divorced you, despite the sacrifice you made for him. Didn't I tell you that you would regret this?" Serwaa forced a smile, masking her inner turmoil. "Humans are not like pillows that you can always sleep on," she replied, trying to maintain her dignity. Asari smirked. "I'm always available any time you want to see me." Later, Serwaa confided in her friend, sharing the depth of her sorrow and the betrayal she felt from both Asari and Amoako. "I will never forget the pain Mr. Asari has put me through, and the betrayal from Amoako," she said, tears streaming down her face. One night, Serwaa received a call from Asari. He requested to meet her overnight, as he had before. Torn and desperate, Serwaa felt she had no choice. Her self-esteem was shattered, and she couldn't see a way out of the situation. Hesitantly, she agreed to meet him. Serwaa was determined to put an end to Elder Asari's manipulations once and for all. She told him she would visit him in 3 days' time at night, instructing him not to call her again, as she would come on her own. She was no longer married, and she saw this as a chance to resolve everything on her own terms. 3 days later, as promised, Serwaa went to Asari's house late at night. She made sure to be discreet, avoiding anyone who might see her. When she arrived, Asari welcomed her with a smug smile, not suspecting what was about to happen. "Good to see you, Serwaa," Asari said, leading her inside. "Would you like a drink?" "Yes, please," Serwaa replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. As Asari turned his back to prepare the drink, Serwaa reached into her bag, pulling out a knife. She approached him silently, her heart pounding. As he turned around, she lunged at him, stabbing him multiple times. Asari gasped and fell to the ground, his lifeblood pooling around him. Serwaa stood over his body, breathing heavily, watching until he stopped moving. She then left the scene, slipping back into the night. The next morning, the news of Elder Asari's death spread rapidly across the town. The police quickly launched an investigation, seeking to uncover the truth behind the brutal murder. Serwaa's best friend, who knew about her grudge against Asari, went to the police and shared her suspicions. "I think Serwaa might have killed Mr. Asari," she told them. "She confided in me about what he did to her." 2 days later, Serwaa was called to the police station for interrogation. She claimed she had nothing to do with Asari's death, but the details she provided were inconsistent. Her nervousness and discrepancies in her story raised the officers' suspicions. After further questioning, the police found enough inconsistencies in Serwaa's account to arrest her. She was taken into custody, facing the serious charge of murder. In the days that followed, the town was abuzz with rumors and speculation. Many were shocked by the turn of events, unable to believe that Serwaa, who had endured so much, could be capable of such an act. As Serwaa sat in her cell, she reflected on the chain of events that had led her here. She had been driven to the brink by Asari's relentless demands and her own sense of desperation. Now she faced the consequences of her actions. The trial was set, and the courtroom was filled with people from the town, eager to hear the details of the case. The prosecution presented the evidence against Serwaa, including the testimony of her best friend and the inconsistencies in her story. Amoako heard the news of Serwaa's arrest and her upcoming trial. He spent days reflecting on the kindness and love Serwaa had shown him, remembering how she had saved his life at great personal cost. Realizing the depth of her sacrifice and the terrible mistake he had made by divorcing her, guilt consumed him. He understood that he would have been dead if not for Serwaa's actions, and he questioned why he hadn't forgiven her. Unable to bear the thought of Serwaa going to jail because of him, Amoako made a difficult decision. On the day of the trial, he left his house and rushed to the courtroom, determined to set things right. As the trial commenced, Amoako entered the courtroom, his face pale and eyes filled with determination. He requested permission to speak, and the judge, sensing the urgency in his demeanor, agreed. Amoako stood before the court, his voice trembling but resolute. "Your Honor, I need to confess something. Serwaa did not kill Elder Asari. I did. When I found out that he had forced her to sleep with him, I couldn't forgive him. I went to his house secretly and killed him. My wife is innocent. She doesn't deserve to be jailed while I walk freely. I am the one behind the crime." Gasps filled the courtroom, and tears streamed down the faces of those present. Serwaa, her parents and their friends were all crying, overwhelmed by the revelation. The judge called for order in the courtroom and listened carefully to Amoako's confession. After a moment of silence, he spoke. "Amoako, your confession is a serious matter. You understand the consequences of your actions and the gravity of this admission." Amoako nodded, tears in his eyes. "Yes, Your Honor, I understand. I couldn't let Serwaa suffer for something she didn't do." The judge then ordered Amoako to be taken into custody. The courtroom was filled with a mix of relief and sorrow. Serwaa was overwhelmed with emotion, both for her husband's sacrifice and the pain they had both endured. As Amoako was led away by the police, Serwaa rushed to him, her tears flowing freely. "Amoako, why did you do this?" Amoako looked at her with a sad smile. "Because I love you, Serwaa. I couldn't let you take the blame for something you didn't do. I'm sorry for everything." Serwaa embraced Amoako once again, tears streaming down her face. "But I did it, Amoako. I killed him," she confessed, her voice shaking with emotion. Amoako looked at her, his own eyes filled with regret. "Yes, and it's because I acted foolishly," he replied. "I should have remembered the sacrifice you made for me, but I couldn't, so I deserve this punishment more than you. Please forgive me for not forgiving you earlier." Serwaa held him tighter, their tears mingling. "Amoako, I never wanted any of this to happen. I just wanted to save you." "I know," Amoako whispered, "and I'm sorry for everything. I hope you find a man who will love you more than I ever could and have children with him. You deserve happiness, Serwaa." Amoako was jailed for the murder of Elder Asari, and Serwaa was released. The weight of their story left a profound impact on everyone who heard it. Their tale serves as a reminder of the complexities of human behavior and the lengths to which people will go for the ones they love. Sometimes people commit crimes not because they are inherently criminals, but because of the desperate situations they find themselves in. Serwaa's sacrifice to save Amoako's life was born out of love and desperation. If Amoako had forgiven Serwaa, he wouldn't have ended up in jail for a crime he didn't commit. People often sacrifice a great deal to save their loved ones, and some keep these sacrifices a secret to preserve their relationships or marriages. The power of forgiveness plays a crucial role in healing and moving forward. When others confess their wrongdoings to you, it's important not to judge them too quickly. It takes immense courage and love for someone to admit their crimes. Remembering where we came from and those who have supported us along our journey is vital. Sometimes it becomes too late to forgive those who once offended us. Holding on to grudges and resentment only leads to further pain and missed opportunities for reconciliation and understanding. In conclusion, the power of forgiveness cannot be overstated. It allows us to heal, to mend broken relationships, and to find peace within ourselves. Let Serwaa and Amoako's story be a reminder that love, sacrifice, and forgiveness are intertwined in the fabric of our lives, and that we should strive to embrace these values in our own journeys. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to Anansi Web of Tales and share where you are watching from. We appreciate your love for our videos. Don't forget to comment and share this story with others. Thank you for being a part of our community.